I want to tell you a story that could be about me or about you or your family. Really, it could be about anyone. The story is about a trip to Washington, D.C. The story is not just a tale of the traveling engineer or scientist. Lord knows we have many of those stories. The story is not the family vacation to D.C., which I've enjoyed with my wife and kids, as I'm sure many of you have as well. The story is of ARA Innovation for our customers that have a direct impact on our built infrastructure. It's the story of how ARA Innovation is all around you in your trip to DC. Innovation is the embodiment of who we are at ARA. We offer innovative technologies and solutions to improve our safety, our security, and our way of life. And you, the employee owners, are using your expertise to tackle the most challenging technical problems. Now, in the journey of this presentation, I'm going to focus on a trip that my family recently took to visit our nation's capital. This is the story of how ARA Innovations kept my wife, my 4 kids, and me safe, secure, and allowed us to enjoy our nation's capital. So let's start our trip. Living in central Illinois, there is no direct flight to Washington, D.C. That means that my trip has me flying through one of the largest airports in America, O'Hare Airport in Chicago. If you've ever flown to or through O'Hare, you'll notice that there's a variety of aircraft sizes around the airfield. From the very large Airbus 380 or the Boeing 777 to the tiny little regional jets that service small markets like central Illinois. Our airfields need to be able to safely accommodate all these aircraft and their passengers. In the runway paving world, we're not going to get perfectly smooth runways. As much as we would like construction equipment to be able to create a smooth pavement, it often doesn't happen. After paving's over, the runway's in service, and we have planes putting loads into the pavement, and environmental factors like freezing and thawing and raining. All these mechanisms lead to deterioration and roughness. ARA's Mid-Atlantic Division is working with the FAA to update runway profile standards. To do this, we need to understand how the Airbus 380, that big one, responds to bumps on the runway, which is very different from how the little regional jet responds. We need to look at shortwave and longwave roughness and the impact of different aircraft and even different parts of the aircraft. We look at the response or the bumps felt in the cockpit or in the back of the airplane or where it's closer to the center of gravity. We want a smooth ride for all in the different planes that are using the airfield, and we need to build the airfield with the current technology and the contractor's current abilities. So ARA is working with the FAA, leading to more advanced analysis and new standards for measurement, construction, and performance. ARA is innovating so that the bumps you feel on your landing is only the bump from the pilot and not from the pavement below. Innovative technologies and solutions to improve our way of life. Sometimes when you're flying over an airport, you look down and you see all the rubber deposits on the runway. Aircraft tires go from standing still to spinning at landing speed, which is generally over 100 miles an hour in a very short period of time. This chirp of the tires as you land comes with a little bit of deposit of rubber on the runway. That bit of rubber means that aircraft tires need to be replaced every 120 to 400 landings. That rubber on the runway, it decreases the friction properties of the runway because the rubber is smoother than the underlying pavement that has texture. That lower friction means that when you're landing in the rain, there may not be as much grip on the runway to help stop the airplane. ARA is working with the FAA and modeling runway friction and then measuring it in the field to validate the models. We're helping the FAA ensure that even in the worst of conditions, aircraft have adequate landing distance to safely bring planes to a stop. Innovative technologies and solutions that improve our safety. Rarely, even with a smooth profile and good friction, an airplane is going a little too fast at the end of the runway. These are emergency situations that we never want to be part of. When our family flew into Reagan Airport on our trip, we could see that the airfield sits right along the Potomac River and up against the water. A runway overrun that goes a little too far, and our airplane becomes a boat. ARA is innovating in engineering material arresting systems, or EMAS, to support safely stopping aircraft in the event of an overrun or an aborted takeoff. These EMAS systems are at the end of the runways at Reagan Airport, where we land on our trip to DC. ARA is working on inspection and maintenance best practice documents for the FAA that will be sent out to airports across the country to ensure that their safety systems are ready to go should an emergency arise. We're also working on pilot education to document what happens driving through an EMAS, because pilots don't get trained and don't get to practice these types of emergency situations. Innovative technologies and solutions to improve our safety. When the family pulled into Reagan Airport, we just went about our way through the airport on our trip. We weren't thinking about the security threats to the airport. We weren't aware of anything that Reagan Airport might have done to protect us from those threats. However, Reagan Airport is aware of those threats, and they called on ARA to offer innovative solutions to upgrade and harden the airport building to withstand some of those common threats. In our post-9/11 world, we're all too aware of how our aviation system can be used as a threat. We're also aware that airports are gathering places for large numbers of people, and that could be a target. ARA's Southern Division is analyzing those threats and helping to harden our airport infrastructure to keep us secure. Innovative technologies and solutions to improve our security. On our family trip, we're now going to leave the airport and move to ground transportation. The key component of that ground transportation are the roads and bridges that we drive on for this trip and also in our everyday life. When you travel on our roads and bridges, you may think that they seem to be in a constant state of disrepair. In fact, the 2021 report card for America's infrastructure gives roads a grade of D and bridges a grade of C. Across our great nation, roads are a vital lifeline, but they're frequently underfunded. Over 40% of our road system is in poor or mediocre condition, and over 40% of our bridges are at least 50 years old, which is their design life. While the funding levels are a decision for policymakers, there's much that ARA is doing to ensure that when we design new infrastructure, we are creating a high-performing roadway system. ARA's Transportation Infrastructure Division has developed some of the key design procedures that are used in the construction of our roadway network. ARA is the author and support contractor to the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, which is commonly called AASHTO, really a trade organization of the state DOTs. ARA supports AASHTO in the development, deployment, and enhancements to the pavement ME design. This modern pavement design procedure replaces systems from the early 1960s, and it uses modeling and pavement materials and loads to predict the distresses, and then use those predicted distresses as a basis for pavement design. ARA led the research, the commercialization, and the ongoing enhancements to this revolutionary pavement design technology. When you're designing a road, it's really not about just supporting the cars and trucks, but it's also about ensuring that those vehicles are safe. ARA developed the Guide for Pavement Friction that's used across the country to ensure that our pavements help us stop when we need to slam on the brakes. We also helped policymakers and the executives in transportation make good decisions with the Guide for Pavement Type Selection. This guide provides an engineering framework around a process that will determine what materials to use in building the roads. If you're in the business of selling asphalt or concrete or other paving materials, this decision is make or break for your business and your industry. And ARA has provided an innovative decision process so that decisions are based on engineering and economics rather than politics. We don't stop with these guides and manuals. We produce many more that help federal, state, and local agencies use our funds that we pay in taxes and fees to provide a high-quality roadway infrastructure. Innovative technologies and solutions to improve our safety and our way of life. Nearly all roads and bridges are owned and maintained by a government agency, whether they're state, county, city, or township, or sometimes even private roads. Most agencies have more roads in less than ideal condition, and they don't have adequate funding. ARA helps these agencies learn about the engineering properties contributing to the pavement's condition. We model and we forecast future pavement conditions based on the traffic and the weather and the support conditions under the road. And we work with those agencies to optimize the use of their limited resources to keep as many pavements serviceable for as long a time. ARA works with agencies to deploy functional improvements based on critical pavement condition triggers, allowing those agencies to improve the value of their transportation assets more effectively. This type of work is called asset management. Asset management in transportation started with pavement management. Pavement management started decades ago when a young Air Force lieutenant named Dave Artman worked with a team of researchers out of Illinois, including Mike Darter, to develop a way to quantify pavement condition using numeric values, and we still use that today to predict future pavement performance. Mike Darter sold his company, ARA Consultants, to ARA in 1999, and he just retired in September of last year with over 55 years in the industry. Dave Artman is still with ARA today. What those innovators did in their day, out in the field on the hood of a pickup truck, using nomographs and French curves, we're now doing with 3D scanning laser systems and artificial intelligence. In fact, these images you see on the screen here were taken and posted on a blog because somebody saw this crazy vehicle with an ARA logo on the side driving around DC. And they looked and saw ARA was a defense contractor, and they thought for sure the government must be doing something crazy with this big complex van driving around the streets. Not only is ARA innovating in pavement management, but we're also the leader in pavement markings. Carmen Dwyer, a group leader in TID, is one of the world's top experts in pavement markings. And while some of you might think, Bill, aren't you just talking about paint on the pavement? The world of pavement markings is getting more and more advanced and more important in our modern transportation system. The future of self-driving cars, the current driver assist technologies, they are looking for those pavement markings on the road to help your vehicle navigate. A world that was just paint is now complex materials using multiple components, and it's advanced materials that help us and help our cars see the road around us. These are innovative technologies and solutions to improve our way of life. As we continue on our family trip to DC, we took time to visit the monuments and the buildings that house the action here in our nation's capital. When you look at those buildings, whether it's the Supreme Court or the House Office buildings or Smithsonian museums or heck, pretty much any other building in the DC area, in front of you, you'll often see these bollards as a barrier between the road and the building. The innovation, engineering, and science in those barriers comes from ARA's Southern Division. The DC area is not known to have large space underground to build huge foundations for these barriers. And we want to keep our infrastructure and our monuments safe should someone want to drive a large truck up to them. So this makes design difficult, but the mission is the same. Protect the people and the infrastructure from any sort of vehicles that might be looking to cause harm. ARA provided innovative modeling, simulation of different foundations and barrier designs, and this resulted what is the standard barrier that you will see all around DC. As you're out and about in DC area and you see this bollard in front of a building, you can know that ARA Innovation allows this barrier to protect people and infrastructure. Innovative technologies and solutions that improve our security. Not only is it the barriers between the street and the buildings and monuments, but it is those buildings and monuments themselves that ARA is providing vulnerability assessments and protective designs. The blue-colored buildings in this graphic make up nearly every key piece of infrastructure in the monumental core of Washington, D.C. Longtime security engineering leaders like Joe Smith and Jim Brokaw and their awesome teams in the Southern Division are working to protect this key infrastructure. As our family walks around the mall and the monumental core of DC, ARA's security engineering innovations are all around us in nearly every building that we see. Now, you're not going to see an ARA sign on these buildings, and unless you are part of this great employee-owned company, you might never know the impact that we, ARA, are having on the security of the infrastructure in our monumental core. These are innovative technologies and solutions to improve our security. Our family trip is going to end with a visit to the founding documents of our great nation. I can remember the first time I saw these documents and how I was in awe of seeing the real thing. I remember watching my kids visit the National Archives and waiting in line to see the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. I remember hearing from the staff at the National Archives on how there's a special vault where these foundational documents are stored to protect and preserve them. What many people may not know is that ARA was key to the design of these special vaults that ensure that our foundational documents are preserved and protected from blast. The innovations that ARA brings to viewing these national treasures, it's in the background. It's not visible when you're there looking at the documents. ARA is innovating behind the scenes to protect our national treasures. Innovative technologies and solutions to improve our security. In our family trip, we started on the airplane. We moved to the road system, and we ended up sightseeing around the mall in Washington, D.C. If you've done this in the past, or if it was part of a trip that you had to D.C. for a meeting, did you know that ARA Innovations were all around you? Often ARA Innovations are behind the scenes, and our impact is not known that well. You should know, wherever you go, ARA Innovations are in the built infrastructure all around you. The transportation and infrastructure sector of ARA has employee owners that offer innovative technologies and solutions to improve our safety, our security, and our way of life. Thank you.